starshine lights my way to bed. Magic rainbows glisten in my head. Just like a child, I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down.
On today's video, I'm going to show you how to add a pleated ruffle to add a bit of interest to a basic top. The top that I've made a few versions of is the Sew Over It London Ultimate Shift Dress, but the top version, I'm actually running a workshop later in June in one of the local fabric stores on how to make this dress or top. So I've been making lots of different versions just so that I know the pattern inside out. Now, a version that I did share recently on Instagram, which went down really well, was this lovely yellow version, and it's made from a Liberty of London quilting weight fabric. I'd say it's kind of quilting weight, but to add a little bit more interest, I added this pleated ruffle onto the front, and quite a few people on Instagram asked me to share a video on how to do that, so that's what this video is about. I'm just going to come in and show you this in, so you can see that's the ruffle. I do prefer a pleated ruffle than a gathered ruffle because I find it's easier to press and it looks cleaner. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to add that detail. I'm not going to show you how to make the top, I'm just showing you how to add that ruffle detail. Now, a couple of things I'll say about this video. The first thing is I've recorded it as kind of overhead video so you can see exactly what I'm doing, but I need to do that using my phone and not my camera that I normally do the recording on, and it's actually hanging from the light shade in the middle of the room. So if it does wobble ever so slightly, that's the reason why. And secondly, part way through recording the video, on part of kind of showing you how I add the ruffle, somebody must have phoned me and the camera stopped recording. I mustn't have switched it on aeroplane mode before I started recording. So I have had to explain to you how I've done that step rather than showing you as I do it. Because I couldn't unpick it all and start it all again because it's cotton lawn, so it was likely to snag the fabric. But it's really clear steps anyway, so I hope that with the video that I've done, you'll still fully understand how to add a ruffle. So I will carry on with the video and show you how to do this, and then I'll be back in again at the end. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to add a ruffle like this to the Sew Over It Ultimate Shift Dress. It's actually the top version that I've made here. It's a really simple top to make, and I just wanted to make it a little bit more interesting by adding this ruffle. Now, the pattern doesn't come with any ruffle piece or any guidance on how to add one, so I thought I'd just share a quick video to show you how to add one yourself. So this is one that I've made from like a quilting weight Liberty of London fabric, which is super cute. And this weight fabric does work really well actually with this top because it does work well with fabric with a bit of structure. So before I show you how to make the pleat, I'm just going to go through a few of the dimensions of a pleat, so you can kind of think about how much how long a strip of fabric you need to cut to make your ruffle. So I am the size 8 in the Sew Over It pattern, and you can see on mine I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pleats, which are approximately 2 inches wide on each pleat. So the approximate measurement of the strip of pleats is something like 13.5 to 14 inches. Remember, it will extend past the seam allowance at the edges. So when you're making a pleat, each 2-inch pleat will take up 6 inches of fabric. So I just want to show you that in case you're not familiar with it. So what I've got here is 1 inch at the bottom, so where it folds over, I've then got an inch that runs up there. I've got 2 inches that run across the top. I've got an inch on that fold there, and I've got an inch where it folds back there. So each of those pleats requires 6 inches in length of fabric to allow you to make the necessary folds. So that's just to kind of give you an idea. What you also want to ensure that you do though is leave a gap at the end where you don't have a pleat, because otherwise what you could end up with is a pleat that's stuck inside the sleeve, which you don't want to happen. You want them to be loose sitting on the front. So I didn't think too carefully about how much fabric I was cutting. I just cut a strip which was the full width of the fabric, and depth wise I wanted the pleats to be approximately 2 inches deep, but that's the finished size. So I have got a hem at the top and I have got a hem at the bottom there. So I will just go and get the top that I'm working on next, and I'll go through those measurements and a little bit more detail and how I make this pleat. This is the next version of the top that I'm making. This is actually a lighter weight one. This is from Liberty of London Tarn-Loom. Now I've got the front bodice constructed in the respect of I've stay stitched the neckline already, and I have sewn and pressed the darts on the front bodice as well. So I'm just going to move this out of the way a second. So you will need to have that front bodice constructed in that way. Then I've cut a strip of fabric. Now, as I said, I wanted my pleats to be approximately 2 inches deep. So what I've done is I've cut a strip of fabric which is about 3 inches deep, and then I just cut it the full width of the fabric. So what I've got here is, just check, so mine's approximately 53 inches long. That is going to be too long. I won't need that much fabric, but I'd rather have too much and then cut it off rather than start doing the pleats and then it ends up that there's not enough fabric there. What I'm going to do then, before I start to make the pleats, I'm going to hem each end of the strip of fabric. Now, one thing actually to make sure that you do correctly is cut the strip of fabric in the right way. So for example, on this I've got flowers which run that way, so I cut the strip of fabric, the selvage, if you imagine the selvage run along here. Here's my fold of the fabric, and I cut the strip along that way to make sure the flowers were in the right direction. A good example could be you might be making a top where you've got horizontal stripes across the top and you want the ruffle to have vertical stripes. So just make sure you cut your strip of fabric in the right direction. So what I'm going to do along the top edge is I'm going to overlock all the way along there. And then all I'm going to simply do is fold that back by 1/4 inch and just hem that by stitching it. I'm not doing a double hem at the top because I don't want to end up with too much bulk on the fabric. What I will do along the bottom edge is I will do a double 1/4 inch hem, a double folded. So I will press it at 1/4 inch, fold it over and press it again, and then I will stitch that in place the same. So I'm just going to go and head off over to the sewing machines and get this strip of fabric prepared. Okay, so what I've done now is I've overlocked the top edge. So what I'm going to do is just press that under along where it's overlocked and then stitch it at the sewing machine. One thing I do if I'm sewing a double hem along one of the edges just to make it a little bit easier. I'm not sure if you will be able to see, but what I've done is I've done a stitch line with where I want the fold to be on the hem, and then what that does is that makes sure that you're folding it over evenly without having to use a gauge, and it makes it fold over easily as well, because it folds really easy over that stitch line. So I will just get those pressed.
Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground. Just like a prisoner when his sentence ends, all my dreams are coming true. And I owe this happiness to you. Love has changed my former point of view. Just like a butterfly, I've got new wings. All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming, all my dreams are coming true.
Okay, so that's the double hem pressed, ready for stitching. I'm just going to fold this overlocked edge over once. I'm just going to fold it along that overlocked.
And I owe this happiness to you. Love has changed my former point of view. Just like a butterfly, I've got new wings. All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming, all my dreams are coming true.
Okay, so I'll go and stitch these hems in place at the sewing machine. So I'll just stitch along there, just catching the hem, and along that side as well, and then I will be back to show you how to pleat the ruffle. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to pleat the ruffle now. What I've done first of all is I've marked the centre point of my strip of fabric just by folding it in half and then putting a pin in place. What you will need for this is a tape measure, some pins, and wonder clips do help, but you don't need wonder clips, you can just use pins. So what I'm going to do first of all, I've got my centre point there with the pin in, and I'm going to measure 2 inches from that centre point, which is there, and I'll just put another pin to mark there. What I'm then going to do is pinch the fabric and fold it along that point where I've just put the pin, and fold it in to meet that centre point. Try and ensure that it stays quite even at the top. And then just put a wonder clip on to hold it in place. I'm then going to mark 2 inches from, so there's the fold line. I'm going to mark 2 inches from that point and put a pin in. Then this time I'm going to fold it again on that point, but that way, and fold it over until it meets the other pleat. Let's just check. And then put in a wonder clip. So that is my first pleat, and that should measure 2 inches, which it does there or thereabouts. And what I'm going to do is keep repeating that on either side until I've got the number of pleats that I want. So let's do one on the other side. So mark 2 inches from that centre point. Put in a pin. I'm going to fold it along that point and bring it in to meet the centre. And then the same again, so mark 2 inches from the fold line where the pleats have met now in the middle, 2 inches from there. But this time pinch it and bring it in to meet the pleat that you've just made. So there is my first 2 pleats. So I will repeat that until I've got 6 pleats.
Just like a child, I live in wonderland. All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground. Just like a prisoner when his sentence ends. All my dreams are coming true. I think I'll go fly into the sky. Give the moon a smooch, he's my kind of guy. Maybe I'll even give Saturn a try if he offers his ring with that look in his eye. Excuse me if I'm silly, like a goose gone willy-nilly. And I owe this happiness to you. Love has changed my former point of view. Just like a butterfly, I've got new wings. All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming, all my dreams are coming true.
Okay, so that's my 6 pleats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What I will do now is just use the iron just to press them slightly, just to secure them in place. Just be careful with your iron if you have used wonder clips because they are plastic. Okay, what I'm now going to do is take this over to the sewing machine and I'm going to secure those pleats in place just by stitching all the way along there. I will try and use my walking foot, I think, just because it goes over the pleats better without them kind of getting caught up under the foot. But you don't need a walking foot. If you don't have a walking foot, you can do this without one. You just need to be careful, as I say, that the pleats aren't getting caught up as you sew along. So I'll just head over to the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm going to just secure these in place now by just stitching along the top of the pleat. So I will need to remove the wonder clips as I go. And I'll just stitch over that stitch line that I've already created. So on the first pleat, I'm just coming in, so I'm just on the inside of the pleat, otherwise it will get caught up under the machine. But then I'll go back and just remove the wonder clips as I go. Now the pleats will start to try and pull apart as you're sewing, so just use your fingers to hold them in place as much as you can.
And I owe this happiness to you. Love has changed my former point of view. Just like a butterfly, I've got new wings. All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming, all my dreams are coming true.
Okay, so that is now secured in place. It's not perfect, so you can see I've gone off the stitch line there in a couple of areas, but I'm not too fussed about that. But you could just take a little bit more care than what I did if that type of thing does bother you. But that is stitched in place, so what I'll do now is I'll head back over to the table and show you what I do next. Okay, so I have thought that I was recording, showing you what I've done with the ruffle next, but my phone decided to stop recording. So sorry about that, but I will explain to you what I've done. It is really simple steps anyway. So where we were at is we had just secured the pleats in place on the ruffle at the sewing machine. So what I want to do next is find the centre point of the bodice. So I just simply fold it in half and use a bit of pressure to create a crease. And then just put a pin in to mark it. I will then find the centre point of the ruffle. So for me, it's got 6 pleats. So 1, 2, so just 1, 2, 3. So this is the centre point. So I want that centre point to line up with the crease line that I've just created. You want to establish how far down the top you want the ruffle to sit. So for me, it's about 2.5 to 3 inches. But what you may be best doing is trying the top front on you, or even basting it together to find where the ruffle is going to sit best on you, because it will vary depending on your bust size. And then what I'm going to do is pin the ruffle in place at around the 2.5 to 3 inches point. So you can see there, that's 2.5. So I would just put a pin in, and then I would just keep measuring to wherever I wanted. I've taken it down a little bit lower at that arm point. So just position it however you want it positioned on the front of the blouse. Pin it in place, then take it to the sewing machine and stitch it in place along that original stitch line that you created when you stitched the secured the pleat together. Now just imagine these would actually be extending out longer. I've trimmed them off now, but you want them to stay longer for the time being, so just keep them as a long piece. What you then want to do is finish the top of the ruffle in whichever method you choose. I've decided just to place a piece of ribbon along the top, so I pinned it in place, and then I've done an edge stitch at the sewing machine along the top of the ribbon and the bottom. On this original one that I did, I just used a zigzag stitch on the sewing machine, or you could use a bit of lace or crochet edge or decorative edge, whatever you want to use to finish it off. So secure that in place. What you then want to do is trim the ruffle at the armhole. So all I simply did is turned it so it was the wrong side facing up. So imagine that would still be extending out. I've then used the scissors just to trim it off so that it's even with that armhole. And then I've put a few basting stitches in place just to secure that. And I've done the same on the other side. So you can now treat that like it's one piece of fabric. The only thing that you need to watch out for is when you are finishing your armholes, either by adding sleeves or bias binding or facing or whatever method you choose, you want to be really careful to ensure that the edge of this pleat doesn't get caught in the seam allowance. So what I'm going to do to avoid that is just fold it back and just put a pin in place. And I'll do the same on the other side as well, so just fold it back out of the way. And pin it. And that's it. So now treat this as though it's one piece of fabric and carry on with the construction of your top. I hope that you found that useful. I'm going to get this top finished and I will show you how it turns out at the end. Okay, so I hope that you found that useful. I have finished my ruffle blouse now, so I'll just show it you in a little bit more detail. So I've finished the neck and the arms using bias binding on this version, only because the fabric is quite sheer, and if I used a facing, you could see the facing coming through on the top, so that's why I've chosen to finish it with bias binding instead. So again, you can see it makes a really simple top, just a little bit more interesting, having that ruffled detail. I'm going to come in closer in a second and just show you them a little bit closer up. As I said on the overhead videos, I have finished this one off with ribbon. Now the only thing I would say, by finishing it with ribbon, it does make it a little bit more noticeable if it's slightly off centre or something like that. So I think mine is, it's not perfect, it is slightly off, but I really aren't that fussed about it being perfect. But just be mindful of that if you are doing a version for yourself and something like that would really bug you. Just be really careful when you are stitching the ribbon in place that it stays put and doesn't kind of shift about. So let me just come in and show you these a little bit closer up. Okay, so you can see I've got my 6 pleated ruffles there, and you can see on these end ruffles here, because I pinned them back, they haven't got caught in the bias binding of the sleeve, which is great as well, and it sits just in the right place for me, so I'm really pleased with that. So that is it. I hope that you found that useful. If you've got any tips or any vlogs or blog posts yourself with any details of adding some little details of interest onto a basic top, then feel free to link them in the comments below so that people can access them and so I can have a look myself. That would be great. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. So have a wonderful week, whatever you are up to. It's really sunny here today. We've been on a lovely walk to Rudyard Lake for anybody who's close to the Staffordshire area. It was really nice, but really busy as well. So enjoy the rest of your week and I will see you soon. Bye!
All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground. Just like a prisoner when his sentence ends. All my dreams are coming